very many years. Some people don't know that. But I've been basically most of my senior career life in the public service. Yes, experience also in the World Bank before I joined government. I joined government during President Kibaki's time, and then moved to Treasury, and then to the Ministry of Devolution, and now I'm in politics. Yeah, I love to serve.
Great,
Yes.
great. You said you are Christian.
Yes.
Has it always been like that?
Oh, yes. Actually, I used to come here when I was young.
At Sitam?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, in the days of Dennis White.
Wow.
I never missed the Tuesday prayer meetings.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, through university life and all, and then, of course, changed churches to Lighthouse, Nairobi Lighthouse Church. Then now I'm in Karura. I've been in Karura for a couple of years. Many years,
Wonderful.
actually.
Wonderful. Has faith in any way influenced your leadership?
Oh, yes, certainly. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for faith. Yeah. I've said that very many times. I don't wear my faith on my sleeves.
Yeah.
But I say that if it wasn't for the faith that I have in God, I wouldn't be here. I would never have survived anything that was thrown at me. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. As the governor of the great Kirinyaga County,
Yes.
what do you love about your county?
I love Kirinyaga. Kirinyaga is a wonderful place. It's a very small county in terms of landmass. Just about little less than 1,500 square kilometers. So for those who come from larger counties, you may not picture that. But just imagine Kiambu County is almost like 4 or 5 times bigger than Kirinyaga. Muranga is probably 4 times. So Kirinyaga is very small in terms of landmass. But I love Kirinyaga. It's very vibrant. See, everybody knows about Kirinyaga. It has people who are very genuine, very hospitable, hardworking people. It's very productive. It's considered amongst the wealthiest counties in Kenya because of its productivity. And it has great people. They are very real. Kirinyaga people say it as it is, and mostly with a little bit of humor. So we are good people, and I love Kirinyaga. Yes.
All right, Your Excellency, you've been an inspiration to many women, including Sharon Naitore.
Oh yes.
I don't know, what has been your motivation? What has motivated you to have that steady rise in leadership?
First of all, I cannot say that it's something that is planned or something that I was motivated to do and then I ended up rising. I think a lot of it has to do with where you're assigned. I'm a firm believer, as you heard me say, in the word. And you know, the Bible says that he assigns to each one their portion. So I think that this is my portion. You know, one of the things that I look at my life and I say, it's not like I sat and I prayed to be a politician. If you remember when I was a technocrat, or even when I was a minister, I remember people asking me even on TV, and it's on record, that will you ever consider politics? And I would say never ever. You know, because I never even thought I would be in politics. So what has happened is that I have learned to make the best and seek to excel wherever it is that God places me or where I find myself, and work to surmount challenges that come my way, use them as opportunities and stepping stones to the next thing. I am a very determined person. I used to teach Sunday school when I was much younger in Lighthouse, and I remember one of the things that I never forget is we taught the children, there was a series we were doing on excellence, and we taught them that excellence is being better than best, you know, very simple like that. So I pursue in everything that I do to be better than best. So even in politics, I am working very hard to be better than the best. You know, you can say, oh, I've done my best, then I say try to do better than even that best. So the determination, working hard, listening to counsel, learning every day is maybe what has gotten me to where I am, and building a lot of networks, social networks, reaching out to people, listening, and and many times taking counsel. Sometimes it doesn't go very well, but sometimes it goes well. But more than everything else, if you have your path cut out right and your head above your neck still looking forward, it's very easy to get to places you didn't even imagine you could go. Yeah. And the other thing that I believe also is favor. I think I'm one of those people who's prayed for a lot. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for prayers of very many people around me, my family, my friends, people who uphold me. My husband is a great support. He's been a strong pillar, very level-headed and well-grounded. And all that combined have worked to get me to where I am today.
All right. Talking about now women in leadership, and would you please paint for us a picture of women in leadership, maybe since independence?
I am not a historian, Frank.
Yes.
I'm not very good at being a historian, and I wasn't originally, as you've heard, in politics or in the women's movement. But
Yes.
From my experience in the last 10 or so years, and before that in public service, about another 15 or so, I would say that women have come a long way. We are not where we would want to be. If you look in the early 70s and 80s, we hardly had women in political leadership, so to speak. I think I've seen pictures of the first president's cabinet, and an entire male cabinet, for example. And I know leadership is not just about politics, it's also in the private sector and in the social sector as well, even in the church, religious sectors.
Yes.
And we never saw many women in these positions of leadership. The women movement started very slowly in the late 80s, picked up in the 90s, especially around the Beijing conference. And thereafter, we started envisioning the possibility of women in senior leadership. When my former colleague, Honorable Charity Ngilu, ran for president in the late 90s. I think that is when people started thinking, especially on the political side, that actually there's a possibility, and we must thank her for that bravery to take the opportunity to stand up and step out and put herself out there. She didn't win, but she broke a glass ceiling for us. There was a possibility that can happen. Thereafter, of course, Martha Karua also ran in 2013. Again, didn't succeed, but then that then opens the possibility of women being in leadership. And I think those of us who have run for governor positions is because of people like that. Yes, they didn't make it there. Then we said, we will try at this level.
Right.
And I was privileged to be amongst the first 3 female governors in 2017. 2013, not a single woman governor. And then 2013, 3 of us, and unfortunately one of us passed on. And now in 2022, 7 of us. I think that's a great milestone. If you look at Senate, still 3, and 3 is not too bad. National Assembly, we are not doing too well, but the number has been rising very slowly. Out of 290 constituencies, I think we have about 28 or so women elected in single member constituencies. Now, not adding the 47 affirmative action women, the county women reps, and in Senate, also the numbers are still small. So we're still getting there. It is the reason I say it's slow. We would expect that would probably be at 30%. We are not there. And that is why we have come up with this G7 strategy to see if it can be a catalyst for larger numbers of women. And we started by saying G7 to G16. We were challenged to go to 24, and now we are working ambitiously to see if we can increase the number of women governors. And not just governors. As we do that, we expect to also influence, mentor, and support other women leaders who want to run for constituency seats, who want to run for Senate, and hopefully we will have a lot more. Politics is what drives the world, so to speak, in the sense of public policy. And we hope that in doing that also the numbers will go up in the public sector, they will go up in private sector, they'll go up in the social sector and in civil society as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You mentioned something to do with mentorship, but we'll be getting to that later on. Allow me to take you back to something that happened just very recently. You launched the strategy, the G7 strategy. What is this about?
Well, the G7 strategy is simply, first of all, I have seen people using the G for many other things.
Yeah.
G for us is governors.
Right.
Yes.
So the G7 is the caucus of women governors. We are 7 of us, so we thought we'll call ourselves G7. And we are happy that it caught on.
Yeah.
And caught the attention of many people.
Right.
But the strategy is working at 2 things. One is to support the current women of governors to excel in the leadership, in whatever it is that they are doing, whatever they set their hands to do in their counties, mostly because we know that we have a great responsibility to those who are coming after us to set that example. If women are going to be elected in Kenya, it is going to be based a lot on how we perform. So one of the things that we want to do is to make sure that women are excelling, and that is one of the strategies of G7, to deliver the promise of devolution. That when people talk about devolution, they will think about the G7, you know. If there are people who have delivered on the promise of devolution, will be the G7 women. The other thing is to also set an example to very many of those who are coming after us, provide an opportunity for mentoring, build networks on the grassroots. Every G7 governor will be having women, grassroots women, building up the capacity of them in leadership, whatever it is that they are, whether it's in the church groups or in the community groups, so that we have this solid sort of foundation where we can draw leaders in future. Because we always say that we want women leaders, but we don't create the environment for them. And also to change a lot of the perceptions that women can't lead in many of our societies. The other thing is to help the G7 also transition. We do not want to lose the G7. Now, I'm not running again because I'm on my 2nd term, but the 6 governors who are there, we are working and praying that they will transition to their 2nd terms and then add another, so to speak, 10 or 20 other women elected at as first termers. So the G7 strategy works on ensuring smooth transition and also retention of those who are there, creating political space for us women leaders at both tier 1 and tier 2. Women are usually given the tier 3 slots. You will find that when conversations are happening, we are not given space at the top, but this should help us by strengthening our capacity, learning from each other, exchanging ideas, mentoring, participating in each other's forums, encouraging one another. And in so doing, we hope that we will be able to build on that. So in a nutshell, the G7 strategy is to help us retain the slots that we already have and expand the slots to G24, 24 female governors, expand the space of women in political leadership across in members of parliament, county assemblies, and also thereafter the ripple effects to the private civil society, religious institutions as well. So that's basically what the G7 strategy is about. It's founded on several pillars. We have the first pillar of socioeconomic pillar, and on this we want to focus keenly on socioeconomic indicators. We're not just talking about performance theoretically. We will be using data, disaggregated data, to show where we are having an impact in health, in agriculture, in provision of water, in revenue collection, in increasing the number of tourists in your county, in investments, for example, and using that data then to inform our interventions as women leaders. The other thing is we will be working to see if we can support in raising resources, both for our counties in terms of investments. You have seen already my colleague Governor Gladys Wanga has had an investment conference. That is what we want to do. Many of us, Governor Wanga, myself, and Governor Susan Kihika, all of us have the privilege of having one of the new industrial EPZs in the country, and getting investments in those EPZs, getting employment for our people, succeeding in that area and empowering our people economically. Then also we want to influence our parties. We come from different parties. I'm sure you've seen that we are not confined to our parties, to provide that space deliberately for women leadership. I'm happy that our party UDA has already assigned themselves to the alternative gender rule in leadership, so that if you have, let's say, the chair of the party is a lady, you will find that the three deputies, you will have both male and female, so that it's deliberate that we are creating that space, and that we will not just assume that it will happen automatically, but deliberately securing the space for women. And then also finding resources and networks for us and for women leaders to excel in what it is that they're doing, and also support those who are coming after us, bringing others along.
All right.
All right. I can see great initiatives right there for the woman, and having, the woman workforce and leadership has steadily increased over the years. And I don't know what you're doing as women governors or the G7 to loop in the boy child as well. Is there anything you're doing
To do what?
to loop in the boy child? Because we are talking about
Father's Day.
Yeah, in the spirit of Father's Day is coming. Let me say this. As you can see, I don't want to sound like I don't care about the boy child.
Yeah.
The boy child is very important. But looking at the numbers, what is informing us is the numbers and the data. It's 7 women governors out of 47. 40 are male.
yes.
It is 28, which is less than 30 out of 290. So 262 are male members of parliament. That should tell you 47 and in Senate, and only about 3 elected. So you can see where the challenge is. So our focus right now is to empower and create space for women and the women leadership, because they are not there. Women constitute 52% of Kenya's population. We all have both boys and girls as our children. And what happens is that we are finding that the boys, as much as there's a conversation about the boy child and the challenges that they're facing that we need to intervene on as leaders, when it comes to leadership, it's the women who are not finding their space in leadership. We have, even in the public service, you will hear that we have 60 or so percent 30% or so of the civil service is women, but most of them are in the lower cadres, you know, the secretaries, the messengers, the lower cadre staff. When you come to the more senior positions, you don't find women. But in our programs in the counties as women leaders, we have the interventions that deal with matters that affect the boy child. Teenage pregnancies, I know you will talk about the girls, but the girls don't get pregnant by themselves. You know, so the education and interventions have to happen on both sides, both with the boy child and the girl child. In the Mount Kenya region, we have the challenge of alcoholism, and that also is majorly affecting the boy child. And interventions that we do at our level in the counties will touch on the boy child. Education sector, we apply the same principles. In the health sector as well, we apply the same principles for both genders. But for the G7, in terms of building the capacity of women to lead and to rise up and to start changing our perceptions on patriarchy, I think that will have to be deliberate and focusing mostly on the women.
Thank you. Well put, Governor. Being on this in this journey for many years now as a woman leader, both in the corporate world and now in the, you know, in the political sphere, what are some of the challenges you have seen or barriers that women, you know, in leadership go through? Have they kept evolving or are they the same since?
I think the first one and the one that has been our biggest challenge is patriarchy. We have still a very patriarchal society. I don't know if I don't want to know whether I would say this, Frank. Frank, I don't know whether you're married or not, but I don't know how you would react if your wife said she's going into politics. You know, the instinct for any man is like, no. I mean, no, why?
No
you know?
way.
But it is not unusual for a man to go home and say, I think I'm going to join politics. You know. It's accepted, you know. So patriarchy is one of the biggest challenges that women leadership face. The other one is our social and cultural orientation. I remember when I had when I was already governor and the conversations around deputy president, possibility of a woman deputy president started long before when we started going around during the BBI time. And I remember one of my colleagues telling me that their community cannot have a woman leader.
They won't allow.
They will not have a woman leader. It cannot happen. And they told me to my face. And I'm a woman leader and a colleague governor. That tells you where we are at, you know. And that was then. Now they are led by a woman governor. So I won't say which county that is. So I feel very good. In fact, he was defeated by a woman. By a woman. And I met him some time back and I said, I really don't want to sound like I am gloating that you lost. But you remember the statement you made about women leadership. And I think society is changing. And I think it changes slowly, but it does change. So patriarchy and culture and social orientation has an impact. The other thing is finance, you know. It's expensive if you're going to be in politics. And many women don't have the resources or access to those resources. It's easy for a man to even take, for example, a loan on their shamba or a house to go into politics. I am yet to come across one woman leader who has been allowed by the family to do that. So, and especially if it is joint family property. If it's yours, you work for it, that's something different. Then the other one is it's a tough space. There's a lot of cyberbullying. There's fights. Politics is not church, you know. There's it's rough in politics. It can be quite rough, and for women who are usually sheltered and you're not used to being lied about, or people talking about you or insulting you, or allegations being made against you, it can be quite daunting. And the immediate reaction for most women is that's not what I want to do, and especially because we hold our families together. We are the people who hold our families and are very sensitive about how we are seen and how that reflects on our families. And that is a challenge, because for you to be in leadership nowadays, I wouldn't even say politics now, I have seen serious cyberbullying of women who are in leadership in the media, or those who are in business, you know. And I think that is one of our major challenges. Before, they couldn't reach you, but now because of the phone and the digital world we are in, they are right in your living room, they are with you when you wake up.
Yes.
And it can be quite discouraging, and maybe one of the things that makes women not think to get into politics. And also the price that you pay, it's got a huge price. It's got a huge price. A lot of time that you have to dedicate, not just during the campaign period, but also in service to community. You no longer have your own time. There's no time that is yours. You know, every single moment you are addressing somebody else's needs and responsibilities, and the price you pay for that, where your family is concerned. I was lucky I got into politics when my children were much older, but and mostly adults. So I think only one was still below 18, and now already my youngest is 20, so you can see it's a lot easier for me. But for those who have younger children, it's difficult. You may not be there every day to do homework. You are serving in a constituency, or maybe a family is in the capital city in Nairobi. The commuting back and forth, participating in family functions, you know, just normal things, birthdays, or visiting parents, going for other social activities that are around family. So it's a huge price to pay mostly, and it deters women, because it's not usual for men to be left at home. You know, it's usually the other way around.
Yes.
People accept if a man is going to be away for a long time.
Yeah.
I can see Frank. I can see Frank nodding. Yes. You know?
You're right.
Yeah, women should be at home. You know? Yeah, and especially, I mean, that's generally what people believe. It's how we've been socialized. That's how we grew up. And so for those few of us who will venture out, it's a bit difficult, and sometimes it cannot be very encouraging. But there are women out there who know that they have a calling to do this, and they can contribute to their country in the small or big way that they know how. And mine is to encourage them that it can be done. You don't have to do it forever. You can get into politics, do it for 2 terms and leave, and do your contribution. You can do it for 1 term, you know. It doesn't have to be that once you're in, this is it. The only thing is that once you get into politics, it's very unlikely that you will get employed thereafter, unless you're running your own business. I haven't seen very many people getting employed. A few have. But I think that is one of the major deterrents in terms of women joining politics. Yeah.
All right. Just to, Honorable Governor, take you back to the G7 strategy. Maybe would you please point out a few strategies within the strategy, maybe specific initiatives that you feel will have maybe immediate effect to women in leadership?
The first one, I think, is the aspect of building the local county caucuses. I think at the grassroots level, I think that will have an impact because that is where change begins. That's where the votes are. That is where conversations are, at the lowest level. And if that conversation starts to happen at the lowest level, then you would start seeing an impact. We cannot just be talking on TV, on radio stations, up here where we are in the council. But if all of us, the 7 women governors, have our local caucuses and conversations start at the grassroots level, that will have an impact on women leadership in those counties. And we're not just working with the women governors who were elected. We're also looking for women aspirants for 2027. We already have a draft list of women who have expressed interest to run in 2027.
Sharon, are you one of them?
No, I'm not. You can be sure.
And we will be working with them to have those caucuses also in their county so that this conversation or possibility of electing a woman leader happens. The other thing is that we have specific interventions. Every governor has their areas of focus. I'll speak about mine. My number one area of focus in Kirinyaga is health. And you know very well that health affects women the most, whether you are the one who's unwell or whether you are a caregiver. Because women are the ones, as I said earlier, who keep the home and are considered caregivers. It is very rare that, for example, you will find whether it is your father or your husband or your son or daughter or mother, it's very rare that it is the male who is taking care of the person who's ailing. And so health and improving health outcomes at the county level is very important and a priority for me. Recently, we upgraded our hospital that had never been upgraded since time immemorial, from a very old archaic hospital to ultra-modern 350-bed level 5 hospital in Kirogoya. And with an ICU, a HDU, a special mother and child ward, a renal unit, we have CT scan machines, and we provide all the services that you would find in any private hospital. And with that, we have a strategy that is also expanding the facilities at the sub-county level. We're building another 2 level 4s, and one in partnership with the national government, so another 3 level 4 hospitals, which are about to will be finished this year. And then we have still done in healthcare, improved and built 11 new health centers to add to the ones that we have, and we are hoping to finish another 9 before my term ends. But more importantly than that, we have what we call the community health promoters, who used to be called the community health workers. And those people, we are training them to work at the community level, many of who are women, by the way, majority of the community health workers, because they usually volunteer and we just give them a stipend, are women, and we're working with them to improve the health outcomes from the lowest level, focusing mostly on preventive health care, so that we can reduce the disease burden on our overall facilities.
Right.
So that is in health. In agriculture is my second priority area, because of course I come from an agrarian county. We focus on production. Kirinyaga, as I said, is small, but it's extremely productive. We're the number one, of course, producers of aromatic rice in the region, not just in Kenya. We're heading to 200,000 metric tons of rice a year. Majority of those who work in our farms are women. We are also the number one producers of tomatoes in Kenya. You may not know that. We have Pass we used to be at 60,000 metric tons. We are now heading to 75,000 metric tons. A lot of the tomatoes you eat in Nairobi come from my county. We are leaders in the production of coffee. We are number 2 in the country. Kiambu beats us, but as I told you, landmass wise, we are like less than 30% of their landmass, but we're number 2 in coffee production, and they've only beat us with 2,000 metric tons. So we are soon and very soon going to overtake Kiambu in coffee production. And our coffee also fetches amongst the best prices in the market. We produce tea as well, and a lot of horticultural products. And in agriculture, we have various value chains that we have identified: dairy, avocado, tomato, rice, and those value chains we work from production all the way to value addition. And along that line in the chain, we seek to empower and impact the people who are in either the production or in the value addition, and provide employment for our many young people in the counties. So agriculture is my second area. Now, this is what I'm talking about, mine. And you talk about other governors, they'll tell you their priority areas. So just giving you those two, I also have water as a priority, and trade and industry because of our EPZ as another priority to create employment. So if we do those kind of things, it's not just talking about G7 for the sake of the number 7, but we are very clear, even specifically according to our strengths and our priority areas, how we will work on our strategies to deliver. I said we'll be using empirical data to measure quarterly how we are doing in terms of the targets that we have set. And in
so each
doing,
of you has targets for
every
your
one of
specific
us,
counties.
Yes.
All right.
Every one of us have their priority areas. Every one of us have their plans.
All right.
And then all of us then come up with measurable indicators, and the G7 team and secretariat will be working to help us monitor those to ensure that we meet those objectives, so that it makes it easier when we say delivering the promise of devolution.
Right.
You're not just talking about stories. You're saying that I found this county here. This is where I have taken it. I have contributed to delivering the promise of devolution. And women, therefore, can lead, and that should encourage other people to consider women as leaders. So that is how we are working on it. I wanted to give that example so that you know that it is not just about the theory and talking and just having women caucuses. As a matter of fact, my re-election slogan was Wirawarie in Kikuyu. That means let the work speak for itself.
All right.
Yeah. So kazi yonge.
You're right.
Kazi yonge. Or work speak. There's a guy in my village who says job speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Governor. On the same, do you have anything that is common on among the 7 that you have decided we have to achieve this by the end of this?
Yeah, it's still in the process of delivering the strategy. But one of the things that I can tell you that cuts across all our strategies is health. Because health is a big deal across the country.
Right.
We know that, and especially in rural areas, health is a big issue, and many of us are governors of rural areas. Governor Susan is a governor of the city, but she has a large population also in the rural areas. So health and health outcomes are going to be one of our key indicators.
All right.
Employment, increasing the number of employment will be a big issue. Yesterday, my colleague, Governor Cecily Mbarire, had a trade fair, and the trade fair was on youth employment and getting the young people in her county to connect with opportunities both locally and abroad. So employment in our EPZs, employment within our value chains, and also employment outside of our counties, ensuring that we are providing that opportunity.
All right.
So those, I can say, are 2 things that I know that will be focus for these women leaders. I know agriculture, all of us come from agricultural counties. Education, my colleague governor from Kwale is very strong on education and early education. ECDs, in fact, she's amongst the leading governors in terms of the transformation that she has done, even from the time she was deputy governor and now what she continues to do at the local level. So water is going to be one of key for those who have semi-arid areas, especially. Governor Wavinya is focusing so much on that. You will find hers is mostly because she comes from semi-arid areas. You will find water plants is been and dams are critical factor for Machakos County, and she's focusing a lot on providing water for her residents, because it's one of the things that has been lacking the most amongst all the others that I have raised. So I am providing water. By the way, I'm providing water is a bit different, because I come from just the slopes of Mount Kenya. We have many rivers. All we are doing is connecting water from the rivers to the homes. But there are other places where it's a blood drier, there are no rivers, and so they have other interventions. So that, I think, is what I can say is would be like cross-cutting in terms of the programs that they will be implementing at their levels.
Okay. Governor Waiguru, is there any initiative for mentorship for women, both in, not just in politics, but in the private sector as well?
Yes, let me mention that, for example, I am part of, I'm privileged to be part of something that is called AMUJ initiative that is run by the former president of Liberia and the first woman president in Africa, Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And AMUJ, she started a women's leadership caucus for women across the sectors, private, civil society, and governments from Africa, to mentor them. But one of the things that we're required to do for us is to also bring others along and deliberately identify somebody you can work with and mentor, just like we are mentored and coached, so that they can also come into these positions of leadership. Many people talk about mentoring. They say, I look up to you, you're my mentor. But you see, I can be your inspiration, but to be your mentor, I have to be walk
the journey with you.
Yeah, I have to see you frequently.
Yeah.
We have to have conversations about what you're going through and how you can deal with them from the experience that I have had, and maybe I also learned from your experience. So yes, the opportunities for mentoring, which will be one of our areas of focus. We are all looking to identify women leaders in our counties who we will be working with to mentor. I already have mine because I have been in this space for a while, and we pray that by the time we're done in the 5 years, we will have mentored and worked with women who will successfully get into positions of leadership, be it in politics or in the private sector.
All right. Okay, looking ahead, I don't know, what are your hopes for long-term impact of the declaration, 10-point declaration, for the landscape of women's leadership in the country and beyond?
I think the overall impact is to make a difference. I think that would be, for me, the biggest impact, and that difference can be identified and is tangible. If, for example, we turned around the unemployment numbers in Kenya, that would be a difference. Not just saying make a difference without knowing what. So if all of us contributed, if our EPZs each employed 10,000 people, and if we are 5 of us and 7 of us, and we employ 300,000 people, for example, or 100,000 people, and we contribute to removing 100,000 people from joblessness to employment, that will be something that will be for us something of focus. If of course, I've talked about the issue of increasing the numbers of women in leadership so that they can also have their impact wherever it is that they are. If we could improve our health outcomes, you know, if we could reduce maternity mortality rates and child mortality rates because of the interventions that we've had, and for those who are having challenges with teenage pregnancies, working across even not just within our counties but also with our male colleagues in the counties that have those kind of challenges, that would be a great input in my view.
Right.
If we could have good governance and accountability structures that set examples of how leadership should be, and set a bar much higher so that people can emulate it and put pressure on our peers to emulate those standards. That would be something that I would have considered an achievement. So they are diverse, but on governance and accountability, that would be one of the areas that we would want to exemplify. And let me say this, to separate from politics and allegations and all, talking about good governance in a real sense, where you can actually measure that before this woman governor came, there were these governance challenges. There was this number of audit queries. They have reduced by this number because of interventions and institutional capacity building and training of her staff and mentoring and being hands-on. If you can increase the amount of revenue that we are collecting, for example. Kirinyaga County has been surpassing in the last 2 years their targets for revenue collection. Kenyans are very simplistic sometimes. They just say, they hear one county has collected 10 billion. They say, what is our county doing? I mean, counties are different. Nairobi County's targets are very different from Kirinyaga County. The highest I've been told I can ever get is about $1 billion, and that is when I've really taxed people. And right now we are at about 650. When I came to the county, they were at 200, you know, and we've been growing steadily every year, and balancing that with, of course, you know, no one wants to be taxed, and not suddenly not in the rural areas. When you say you're going to tax in the market and avocados, it becomes a very big issue. So that Governor Wanga the other day increased our revenue to 1 billion in Homa Bay, and it had been, I think, at below 400. I'm not sure about the exact number. Those kind of interventions will give an incentive for people to say, let us try a woman this time around. And in future, I am hoping that this country will have a female president, and not just our female president. Even before we get there, I am praying that I will see 3 to 4 female presidential candidates, that different parties will field credible, able women, and I hope that they will be amongst the ones we have right now, G7 or whoever will emerge from the private sector to run for the president of this country, because I think it would transform and to make a great difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Governor. So we have upcoming the gala, the dinner gala for Women of Excellence, and these are women. You used the term, you know, breaking the glass ceiling and trailblazing and doing tremendous things across in different places. So the gala will be taking place tomorrow, and some have gotten bagged the awards, others have not. What would you tell all these women, Governor?
I think it's more than getting an award.
Right.
That's what I would say. I think it goes beyond being recognized. It's a privilege to be recognized for those who will be, and congratulations to them in advance. But for those who will come runners-up or not have bagged, the fact that you are considered means that there is something. And what I would say to these women is that all of us have a role to play to make a difference in our society, to make this country a better place to live, and also to ensure that we achieve our targets that we have set out as leaders and meet the expectations of those who have put us in leadership. If you're elected, meet the expectations of those who have elected you as a leader, and if you're appointed, for those who have appointed you. And let us as women be very cognizant of the fact that when a woman fails, all women fail. But when a woman succeeds, all of us succeed. And so we be diligent to know that the positions that we hold and the responsibility that we hold is not ours. It is for our sisters as well, our daughters, and our sons as well. And we pray for excellence and work towards excellence so that we can set the example for the next generation.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Governor. And you mentioned the issue of taxation. And we have the Finance Act proposed 2024. The budget reading is today. What's your take on this whole matter?
I think my take is that leadership is very hard.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, there's all these demands of what people want. Every time I open my phone from today morning, people will tell me this road needs to be fixed. This hospital needs this equipment, is broken down. You need to employ more doctors. You need to employ more nurses. The doctors want more pay. And there is no other place to raise the revenue other than taxation. Government doesn't have any other option. And then we find ourselves in a very unique place as a country because we inherited this huge debt because of imprudent both fiscal and monetary policies that were carried out in the previous regimes. And not to blame, to stay there, but to say that now that we're here, we are caught between a rock and a hard place. And what I would urge Kenyan citizens is to forbear with us. We say that pain comes for a season. Sometimes it's darkest before dawn, but it will pass. Once we have gotten over the initial challenges of first meeting our debt obligations and at the same time even not growing our development programs, but just maintaining where we are at, the roads networks that we have, the water systems, the energy systems, we will get to a position where it will be a lot easier when we bring more people into the tax bracket. No one wants to be taxed if they weren't taxed before. I have young children who young adults who are working, who started working, and they really go at it on the breakfast table on Saturdays when they come home about the tax and the impact of that tax. But we hear them. We are sensitive government. We are listening. Where it can be adjusted, we will adjust. But we would ask Kenyans to be a little bit more pragmatic when it comes to policies. People will criticize, but then we ask, okay, what is the option? What if we don't do this? Sometimes we tax some manufacturers, some importers, so that we can encourage manufacturing, for example. And why are we encouraging manufacturing? So that we can create jobs. So if people don't quite understand it, when we remove subsidies that were benefiting, for example, certain few manufacturers, so that subsidy can be channeled to industry so that we can employ more people. Maybe it's our communication that isn't as perfect when we go out there, but I would urge Kenyans to be a little bit more forbearing and patient, and know that we intend well. There's no government that gets out there saying, I'm going to punish these people who employed me. No, there's no such thing. It's just that where it is that we have found ourselves, and I worked many years in the National Treasury. And so I understand this. We are caught between a rock and a hard place, and only God. Only God can help us, and we pray that when we implement these monetary and fiscal policies, and they will bear fruit, and in another 2 or so years we will be at a better place where we can start reducing taxes, because we have a lot more let me say, broader tax
Right.
base, and we can be able to fulfill our obligations.
All right. Just on the same, before we wind up the conversation, is it possible for a country to tax itself to prosperity?
Well, I will say this. I think that is a very simplistic answer. Simplistic statement, sorry.
Yes.
I think it's a cliche statement. Countries need to tax to put interventions in place that lead us to prosperity. For us to put interventions in place for us to build industrial parks, for us to have an infrastructure that encourages investment, we will need to have money to build that infrastructure. And for you to have money to build that infrastructure, you have to tax so that you have the resources to do that. No one is going to come and invest in Kenya if you are looking like in the how we were in the olden days. People want to see a country that is advanced, that has the infrastructure in place, that has a conducive environment, that can produce, that there's transportation systems, there's security, there's electricity. And if you don't have investors, then you can't grow that sector. It's the same thing with the service industry. The service industry cannot be productive if there's no one using that service industry. And for you to be able to use the service industry, you have to have these other sectors because they are all like symbiotic. So talking broadly about taxing, we're still economically, if you look at the numbers, way below the targets that ideal a country like ours, which is in the lower middle income category. Our tax to revenue is still very low, and that is why we are still seeking to have these interventions. The beginning is always uncomfortable. Talk to your friends who have gone abroad and ask them about taxation in the US and in the UK. Everything is tax. You cannot escape tax because everything every single transaction that you do is already monitored in the system. It's unlike us who have rely largely on a very huge informal sector. So somebody else may come and try and be populist and say that we're overtaxing, but if they were given the same position and were told, okay, here we are, this is where we are, this is our debt portfolio, this is the revenue we generated last year, here is the country called Kenya, now you figure. They will do the exact same thing. They will have to tax until we get our economy to grow. In the short intervention, you will find some of the affected companies, some of them downsizing, you know, but then look at the other sectors. There will be other sectors that are growing because of those kind of interventions. So you don't just look at the one company that closed that had maybe 40 people and then not look at the impact of that intervention, for example. So think about it in that way. And I would urge us to be a little bit more open. The president, I know, is meeting the private sector, KEPSA, to discuss that and the issue of taxation and what the opportunities are. And I know, by and large, they will agree on there isn't really any other option in this. There's no one who really wants their taxes increased. There's no day that somebody will say, increase my tax. I am willing. But I hope that when you see the services, when you see the roads, that you will be willing to then pay a little bit so that we can get those services, and then we can get this country to a truly middle income country, and then this will not be a conversation on day to day. But I would say it's same conversations across the world. If you look at the international news, conversation about revenue and taxing is really in the global agenda right now.
All right. Honorable Governor, as we draw to the end of our conversation, would you please advise aspiring women leaders out there?
Okay, aspiring. So they're already aspiring. This would be my advice. Be bold. Have faith. You can do it. You will never know whether you would succeed if you haven't tried. So that's one. 2, reach out to leaders around you. those who can mentor you, those who can support you, and then work at it. Come up with a strategy, sit down and see how you will get there. Don't just assume it will happen. If you're interested in political leadership, associate yourself with a political party, get active in that party, get to understand how they work, and find your space. If you are going into the private sector, hone your skills, ensure you excel, stand out, and you will make it. So be bold. And if you're coming into politics, I will advise you to read Colossians.
Colossians.
Colossians 1. You know, it wasn't supposed to be for politics, but you can apply it in politics.
Okay.
You know, when Paul was talking about the Colossians, that he prays for them, that they can grow in faith and be diligent. There's two words that stood out for me. My current my Bible study, my church Bible study, community life group. My church, we call them community life group. We're studying the book of Colossians.
All right.
And it says that you may have endurance and patience. You will need those two things in politics. A lot of endurance and a lot of patience.
All right.
Yeah, so that you can be able to excel in your good work. Now, that was supposed to be for the gospel, but also applicable in politics. Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Governor Waiguru, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was nice. I think I don't do a lot of media.
Oh, okay.
I do it once in a while.
All right.
All right.
We are honored that you agreed to come on board.
you.
And thank you for the very, very engaging conversation. Comments are many and people are saying, good job, Muheshimiwa. Nice to hear from Governor. We thank God for you. And our Governor is very eloquent. And I think we have someone from Kirinyaga who is, lifting their placards and saying, yay, tomatoes and rice are coming from our county. And so many other comments, Governor, really, many people appreciating the work that you are doing. But thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And for those listening out there, keep your country in prayer. First, keep us in prayer as your leaders. And also, I would want to urge you to support Hope FM for the great work that they're doing out there, for the many people who listen to Hope FM. They say listen and leave. There are not that many stations that can be here talking about things that matter, of eternal value. We are here for a season. We will be somewhere for eternity. And I would urge all of us to play our part in supporting Hope FM. I commit myself. I haven't been to Sitam for a very long time. I used to come here in my university days for Tuesday prayers during Dennis White time. But I've committed myself today to also join the Hope FM family and to support on a regular basis. So
Wonderful.
thank you.
Wow.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for
Governor
having me.
Nirafiki Mso.
Rafiki Mso, I
Just
tell
like
you.
that. Awesome. Thank God for you,
In
Governor.
my small way.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And-
Really honored to be here.
Great.
Yeah, yes.
That's it from us this blessed morning. We have taken up Kimani's time to samehe Kimani. But thank you so much for allowing us to do that. All right. My name is Sharon Aitore Wangenye.
Favored Frank is my name. Bye-bye.
Rafiki soul is a promise of our hand that reaches.